This is the Nomadic Traveler Podcast. Welcome, Nomadic Traveler Podcast. I am your host, Jason.
And your co-host, Nicole.
And we've got an awesome show for you today about wandering.
Not wandering. Or not wandering.
I'm going to say it both ways the whole show, so it doesn't really matter.
So in the show notes,
I'm going to wander back and forth.
I might have misspelled wandering.
So is it wandering or wandering?
Wandering.
I think I'm going to stick with both. I like to deviate.
Okay, well, what does that mean, Jason?
What does it mean to wander?
Yeah.
I think you just wander around aimlessly. You just walk around with no destination.
Yeah, it's gonna be a cool show.
We're gonna have to ask the host, the guest about it, what it means.
Yeah, so we have Danny here today on the show. We're gonna talk to him about his experiences with wandering and wondering.
Whichever one it is, right?
That's right. So it'll be a good show.
All right. Coming up next, Danny. All right, so we're here with Danny. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks. I appreciate it. Good to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. So we're going to go ahead and break into it. What is wandering?
Wandering. It is the ability to enjoy whatever place you are, wherever you are, in whatever manner comes to your mind at the moment. So it's this ability to be able to interact with your surroundings and in your environment, and to be present where you are. We're not very good in this culture at being present, so let's just stick with that. How about we go with it's learning how to be present as you move through your environment.
So as you wander, do you use any technology or is it no technology?
It all depends. So there are times that you use technology and times you don't use technology. And so it makes it fun because sometimes you use the technology and it makes things, just absolutely horrid. But sometimes it'll save your bacon. So, I mean, it really depends on how you feel.
So like when you use it, is it more like in a mapping aspect or like when do you use technology? What's an example?
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, there are all kinds of people that call me and ask me, when they come into a town, in a state, 10 states away, they'll call me and they go, all right, Danny, I'm in this town. What should I eat? And I'll be like, well, it's funny. I did eat there once and I ate at this place. If you take a right on that street and go over there, it's this great place. And so, but sometimes people will ask me about a place and I haven't really been there. I said, give me a minute. I'll give you a call back. And I usually go to TripAdvisor or something like that. I go to the web and then I find a place and I can tell by the name, by the pictures of the restaurant, by, what's said about a restaurant. I usually will call them back and say, all right, I got two places for you. Pick one of these two places. I think it'll be a winner for you.
Yeah.
So, and what's really funny is I have people a lot of times who'll call me and say, I found this restaurant in this little tiny town in the middle of nowhere and you're not going to know it. And they tell me and I go, oh my goodness, that was the best pizza I have ever eaten. Yeah. And they're like, I hate you, Danny.
Yes, that's awesome.
There are lots of people who hate me. So anyway, there we go.
Yeah.
And many who love you.
Well, we hope so.
Yeah, speaking of being present where we are, I recently, you guys know on the podcast, just got an iPhone and it tells you the total number of pickups per day and what was your first pickup and what did you use, and that's very eye-opening because I thought I was one that didn't use a lot of technology. And maybe
How many times you pick up your phone, you mean?
Yeah.
How many times did you pick up your phone?
Like today, I don't.
47,000?
A lot. And I tried to make it a point, to not pick it up first thing in the morning, and that fails.
That's the first thing I think I do when I wake up.
Yeah. So,
do I have any phone calls? Any voicemails?
Yeah. So
any
iPhone for pointing that out to us. But that's so true. Like not being present because we're always stuck up on the cell phone.
Stuck up.
Well, and it's not even just the cell phone either, because we get so caught in our own world and we can't see past our own sunglasses.
Yeah.
And there's so much going on around us. And I believe being present is all about recognizing not only your environment, your physical environment, you need to recognize your relational environment as well. And so you've got to recognize those people in those places. I try to tell people all the time, I said, every cashier matters.
Yeah, I
You
agree.
know, every counter clerk matters. You know, every person on the street matters. So, you know, because these conversations are just waiting to happen, and they bring you deeper into your environment and help you understand things that you would never be able to understand if you weren't present.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So speaking of those stories and those people, do you have like, I know you've met so many cool people, but do you have like specific stories or specific people, a couple that you might want to kind of let us know about that you've met along the way on the road?
All right, I hate to interrupt, but we need to make time for our sponsor.
Who's our sponsor, Jason?
Our sponsor is Indie Wiring Services.
Yes.
Did you get your car rewired by them yet?
I have not, but I need to.
Nicole needs to get a new input for her radio.
Yeah, because then I can stop having to wear my headphones.
She can't. Yeah, she can't. She has to listen to. She has to wear headphones in her car. And the other day, an ambulance ran into her.
It's not true. Do not say that. I drive for a living. I don't listen to my headphones. I reverse that. There's no listening to headphones.
Just edit that right out.
But yeah, no, I'd like to go over there. What could they do for me?
They can give you a racing harness.
Ooh.
Well, anyways, Indie Wiring Services is based in Brownsburg, Indiana. They specialize in high-end wiring harnesses for motorsports and industrial prototyping applications. From project cars to Indy cars to hybrid vehicle prototyping, Indie Wiring can meet your needs. Check them out at indiewiring.net. You can also reach Jeremy at 317-371-7044.
And is there going to be a link on the podcast?
I think we will put a link in the notes on the podcast. So if you guys didn't catch this, please go check them out. We really appreciate them. And they are our sponsor for the entire month of May.
Thank you, Indie Wiring.
Thank you, Indie Wiring. And now, back to the show.
Well, I don't know where I'll go with that, because I will, you know, inevitably when I leave, I'll be like, boy, I wish I would have told them about this person and that person. But the first person that comes to mind, it's actually a couple of ladies at a coffee shop in Green River, Utah. I was just, I was in the middle of this long trip, and I'm just like, today is not a good day, you know? Mm-hmm. And all I wanted was some Star Trek stamps, because they had just come out. So I'm like, I'm going to go to the post office. I'm going to buy some Star Trek stamps. But there was this coffee shop across from there. So I pull in the coffee shop, and I walk in. And out walks this lady from the back. She's cooking bacon at that particular moment, which is never a bad thing to do. And She comes walking out, and she's got tats on her arms, and she's just this super cool lady. And she's like, hey, man, can I get you something? I'm like, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to be back in just a minute. I mean, I saw they had green eggs and ham. And I'm like, okay, I'm probably coming back to eat green eggs and ham.
Yeah.
But I need to go across the street first. So I go across the street, I come back, and this lady is working on her degree at Oxford.
Whoa.
Wow.
And she's doing it online. And so I just started having it. And she's one of the world's foremost experts on the band Canned Heat.
A band?
Yes. And I mean, they're in the rock and roll tree, man. So you need to see the rock and roll tree. Matter of fact, they got a poster of the rock and roll tree while I was there. And I'm like looking at it and I go, I didn't even know who Canned Heat was.
No, I didn't either.
But I looked at her book and I started flipping through it. She started talking about meeting, the people from Canned Heat and how she learned about all this stuff. And it was just really cool. The other lady was there too by this point. And we just have this amazing conversation about food, about coffee, and all these kinds of things. Their shop is amazing. I mean, I didn't ever want to leave the shop. There's Van Goghs all around,
Wow.
And these Van Goghs have now been moved to the ceiling. And they have every name in the world written for what a bathroom is on the door to the restrooms. And they have all of these. They have coffee, the coffee bags as their insulated roof. And you're just like, and they also have this red couch in this place that looks like, well, I mean, it looked like it came out of an Old West brothel. This massive thing sitting there, and I'm like, wow, that is a cool couch.
That's cool.
Well, I mean, these people were just great. And so I ended up staying there. I ended up working on some collaging while I was there, doing some creative stuff while I was sitting there.
Very cool.
Because I just needed that space. And I told him, I said, you know what? You have no idea how much I needed this place today. And she looked at me and she goes, hey, man, I mean, we needed you here today, too. So thank you so much for being here. And when I was leaving, I looked at him and I said, hey, you know what? I would tell you ladies that you need to keep it cool. I said, but you know what? That would be a waste of my breath because there is nothing but cool
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
And they looked at me and they said, and we need to tell you something. You need to remember next time you stop in Green River, Utah, hippies always enter through the back door.
Yes. My mom has that exact poster in her bedroom.
That's awesome.
Yes, that's awesome.
So yeah, that would be one of the people. But I mean, there's no way I could even begin to tell you the number of people that I've met. I mean, I'm thinking again of a guy. His name's Mario Bellacci, I think is his name. When you take a Western tour, so like when you go to the Grand Canyon, and after you leave the Grand Canyon, you go to Vegas, and after you go to Vegas, you go to Zion, and after you go to Zion, you know, if you're making this tour, these people keep making this tour with you. I mean, it's the same people you end up seeing day after day. And so I just kept seeing Mario Bellacci everywhere. And so I ended up in this little town at the back gate of Area 51 called Rachel, Nevada.
Interesting.
And we might talk more about that later. And so I get there, and I do this thing on Instagram called Yeti Monk. And it's actually called Robed and Ready. Sorry, I'm at Yeti Monk, and it's Robed and Ready.
Okay.
And I put on this red choir robe with white stoles and red crosses on it. And I have this certain pose that I do. And so I do this thing everywhere. And so sometimes you have to ask somebody else to take a picture for you, whatever, you know. And so you get into this. Well, I go to the back gate of Area 51. There's a white van way off in the distance, and they're keeping their eyes on us. And there's a guy in the guard shack, but you can't even really see him. But he sees you.
Yeah.
And so you're standing by this thing, and I get ready to get in my pose, and I have somebody that's going to take the picture for me. My friend had actually joined me in Vegas, and he's going to take this picture for me. Mario Bellacci comes up to me, and he goes, "Hey, man, is there any way I could get in the photo with you and sort of do the pose with you?" And I'm like, "Why, yeah, that'd be awesome."
Yeah.
And so he gets in because we had just been in the little alien together. I mean, we'd seen each other multiple times. And so I stand in the pose, he stands in the pose. And when we get finished, he looks at me and he goes, "Hey, man, I just want you to know something. It was cooler being in this photo with you than coming to the back gate of Area 51. I'm like, "No, I don't know about that, but it was really cool." And so I follow him, and he put some really cool stuff out on Instagram from Italy. And he's a really cool guy. So, yeah, you never know who you're going to meet.
Yeah.
That's one of the great things about travel.
Oh, it is.
Is the people that you meet.
I just thought of another guy on this same trip, and this guy was great. He was taking pictures of Star Wars action figures in Monument Valley, and so he'd put them on the saddle, and he'd like take a picture, portrait mode, and you could see the background, and you see these Star Wars figures, and the same Star Wars figures in every one of these pictures. And I mean, if you go to his Instagram, you would see him all over the place. He has a really cool cat too that he takes a lot of pictures of. He lives in Boston area. And I come around, and we just got into this great conversation, all because I dressed up in this weird robe, and I'm taking this picture, and he's like, "So tell me more about this." And we just did this thing, and we ended up running into each other a couple times, and it was just one of those things. We still follow each other on Instagram.
Well, that's cool.
Very cool.
So, yeah. Anyway, sorry. There's 2 or 3 of those.
New friend.
No, that's really cool. And I think that's, something that I know I told Jason a lot. He has all these good stories, and, you have good stories, and I think, I'm young. Maybe I don't have good stories because I'm young. And I haven't been anywhere. But, like, even this weekend, we went camping, and I met this old lady. Just started talking to her. I call her old lady because I don't know her name. But
Betty.
she was her name Betty?
I don't know.
Okay.
It just
could've
sounded
been.
good.
I think it might have been Betty. She was the coolest lady. She was going to come back over, but we ended up sleeping in and missed her. But she even left us, like, a little note at the campsite or whatever. And I was just thinking this morning about how you really don't have to even go anywhere. Like you said, meeting cashiers or meeting...
She just walked right up.
Yeah, she was just walking by, and I was like, "Hey, do you know anything about flowers?" We were planting flowers.
They were planting flowers, yeah.
And she was like, "Nope." She's like, "But I'll talk to you," and just started talking to us and things like that. So just thinking about that for even the young people or people out there that think like, "Oh, I've never been anywhere, I haven't traveled, I haven't had all these experiences and stories." Like, it's kind of cool that you can really
That's one of the fun
meet
things about
people
having a
anywhere.
seasonal site is you can kind of decorate it, and we kind of get away with that. And then people that are, because she was just a stopover person.
True, yeah.
So she was just stopping over, and she's like, "Wow, I really love what you guys are doing at this campsite," because we're there all the time, but then they're just a blip on the radar,
But we still got to connect with her,
Yeah.
and they were, where was she? They had just come from Tennessee, and they were going back to Michigan, I think,
Yeah.
is where they were going. But yeah, she left us a little sweet note, and it was cute.
She's like, "I love your flowers."
Yeah.
Well, see, Now, I know that I said I was going to stop, but this is the problem with Danny. So anyway, I was thinking, okay, a couple of things. First of all, I remember I always go to some church on Sunday morning because I love to go to church. And so I go to church, and there's an Elvis impersonator at this church on this one particular Sunday morning. And he's going to sing Elvis tunes for the message, and I'm like, okay, this is interesting.
Yeah.
So we get finished, and he comes over to me and he's like, hey man, we're going to all go out to lunch. Would you like to come out to lunch with us? And I said, sure. And I'm riding a motorcycle at this point. And so I ride the bike over, and I go in, have this amazing lunch. And he goes, where are you spending the night tonight? And I'm like,
at Elvis's house.
I said, I don't have a place. And he goes, well, come on to the house. And so I ended up staying at his house. He ended up taking me into this bar that he sings in on a regular basis, and he sang Elvis tunes for like an hour and a half while we were sitting there. But there was this other lady that was with him, and this lady is like, she's got a lot of cats. How about we put it that way? She's got a lot of cats. And what was so amazing was she told me something, Nicole, a lot like what you said. She goes, well, I don't really have any stories. And I was like, you do. Mm-hmm. You have stories. We just need to walk back through what we have experienced, or be present where we are so that we recognize those stories as they happen.
Yeah.
Because, that's the thing that's really crazy. Parker Palmer wrote a book called Let Your Life Speak. And in this book, he talks a little bit about that whole concept of realizing how important and powerful everyone's story is.
True.
Because we all do have a story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I'd absolutely agree.
That is true. I do have a lot of stories through my job because I visit people in their homes, and when you go to people's homes, you have a lot of stories.
You see things on the wall.
Yeah. So you have a lot of stories. So I do have a lot of those stories. I guess I just don't think of them in that way because I think of it as a job. But when I go out and about, I guess I do have a lot of stories. Now that you say that,
yeah.
Jason probably can attest. I love to talk to everyone. So because it's one of my favorite things is just to hear people talk.
She likes to make friends.
I do enjoy that.
Got to get out of the car to do that.
That's right.
But you're right.
Step out of the car.
That is so true. Like just like thinking of every story is important, whether it's like deemed cool by everyone or not. Like Betty might not have been cool to everyone, but she was awesome to me because she talked to me for 20 minutes about flowers. And, and it's just like, that's so true. Yeah, I like that.
It does sound a little boring from the outside when you say it like that, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Until you get into the middle of the story, right?
Yeah, really. We really just talked about flowers. Well, we kind of expanded about kids and about, my big spiel about just trying to get kids out and doing things, because I get on my little soapbox and we just talked. But, yeah, so it was cool.
Very nice.
Betty was a cool lady. Well, that's awesome. Don't feel bad about it sharing more than asked ever.
Right, so I got one more.
Yes.
One more.
All right, so this one, I told you they would just start flooding back in.
That's all we want.
So on my sabbatical in 2009, I went on trips by myself. I went on a trip with my wife. I went on a trip with each of my daughters individually. We also went on a family trip together.
Wait, so how were the individual trips?
They were fantastic. Both girls, I ended up taking them to Chicago.
Okay.
And one daughter really wanted an American Girl doll, so we ended up going to the American Girl doll store.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And then, so there's just these great times. My other daughter, I remember one thing she wanted. I'm cheap, okay? So I've got to find the best deal, and I'll spend 6 years trying to find the best deal. And by the time I've found the best deal, I don't even want to do it anymore. So,
right.
And so my daughter said, "Can we take this cruise out on the lake?" And I'm like, "No, we can't take this cruise on the lake." And that's part of the whole thing about sabbatical. On sabbatical, I'm doing things I would never normally do, and I spend money that I might not spend.
Yeah.
And so I'll never forget being on the deck of that boat, looking at the skyline of Chicago at night. It was fantastic. But anyway, so I'm on a bus, and I wanted to go to the corner of Milwaukee and Devon, because at the corner of Milwaukee and Devon, if you know, as you're listening, is a place called Superdog, which one of the best hot dogs in America. It can be found at Superdog. They also have the best fried veggies. Okay, so I'm going there. So I get on a bus, probably near Loyola University, and I'm heading out. Milwaukee. Out Devon. And so I'm riding out Devon, and I listen to the bus driver say, "All right, next stop is last stop." And I'm going, "Well, we're nowhere near Milwaukee and Devon, but I'm on Devon."
Yeah.
And so I walked up to him and I said, "Hey, man, I need to ask you a question. I'm trying to get to Superdog." He goes, "Well, you can't get there on this bus." And I go, "Well, I mean, I just figured Devon, Milwaukee." He goes, "Yeah, man, but this is our last stop." And I said, "Okay, I don't know." And, my daughter's sitting back there wondering what her dad's doing up front talking to the bus driver. Well, what was really cool was the bus driver goes, "Hey, man, I tell you what, why don't you just sit back down? I got you." He gets everybody off the bus. Okay, this is, people talk about people in big cities say they're not nice. This is a CTA bus driver. He's never met me before.
Yeah.
Doesn't know me from Adam. I sit back down, and he lets everybody off at the transit station, and then boom, he just turns left. He drives this way, darting in and out of traffic, gets down to this one other corner, turns, and he stops the bus, and he looks at me and goes, "That side of the street, go wait right there. Wait for that bus. It's going to take you to this place, and then you're going to take a bus from there straight to Superdog." And I was like, "Man,
Nice.
thank you. You didn't have to do that. You don't know me." He goes, "I got kids, man.
Yeah.
Aw.
Yeah.
Have a good night."
Yeah.
Yes.
And you're like, "I love Chicago."
Yes. That's cool. And I think that's once you find that one thing that you connect with someone else on, that's all you need. I think people think we have to agree on everything. Like we have to be on the same side of the political, sphere. We have to be, on the same side of some, everything. But you have to find just that one thing that you connect with.
Well, And what I'm going to say is we already have that one thing. Mm-hmm. We're all created by God.
Right.
We're humans.
More people, yeah.
And because we're people, we have this connection that should bring us together and not separate us.
Yeah.
That's what I find it amazing is how good you can get along with people until maybe you find out their political leanings.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you don't get along with this person. But it was like before you knew that part about them.
You were connected.
It was
on
great.
that level. Yeah. That's so true. Yeah.
But see, one of the best ways to do that is to never let anybody know which way
Just
you
avoid it, right? I know. I agree.
Just don't let them know.
Just avoid it.
Yeah. I will say that's true too. I mean, I think that's true with religion a lot of times too. I know in my profession, which is the craziest thing because our ethics and values align with the ethics and values of religious. But it's just as soon as you say that, I say that to someone, it's a turn off, and it clicks something in their brain that they think of what we have created that to be. And then, but it's like before we are pure humans who are just vibing and we both believe in the same ethics and we both believe in the same morals, and sometimes you find that one thing and then they're like, "Oh, okay, that's not, let's."
Well, and I think another thing about when you're traveling is you need to learn how to speak the language where you are. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you need to know things. Like if you're in the South, they speak differently. So there's things you might say in the South you wouldn't say in the North. Mm-hmm. But, at some point we're going to talk about food in this podcast because, that's pretty much all I talk about. and you know what? When I walk into a place and I notice that somebody is from another country, I'm going to immediately try to say something in their language because I love them and I'm glad they're here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad that they care enough to be here serving me, this thing. So I might, if it's Arabic, I might not be able to say much more than shukran. Or maybe look at them and say, salamu alaikum, alaikum. And I said that wrong twice in a row. Can you believe that? But anyway, alaikum assalam. And they come back at me and, they go, "Oh, you know Arabic?" No, I do not.
Absolutely not.
So, yeah. But just making that effort. Yeah. Just putting a little bit of effort to say that I know you're important as much as I'm important.
Because everyone is worth the effort. Yes.
Is it
That's so true.
Assalamu alaikum?
It's salamu alaikum. I think is one way you could say it. There's different people, and like who you talk to, they'll say different
dialect.
things to you. But it's really cool. So yeah,
that's really cool. I'm gonna kind of veer because I have a question that is not one. It's kind of just a personal question that I'm interested in knowing. You don't have to answer it.
Love it.
If you don't like it, but I love the sabbatical and the idea of that for people who might not know what that is. If you could maybe explain that a little more, and then I know that it's about learning about it, and so if there's anything in your sabbatical that happened that you really learned about yourself that you didn't know or about other people or something that you just really didn't know. You don't have
Wait,
to answer that,
has
but
there been one or has there been multiple?
I have had 2 3-month sabbaticals. So I had one in 2009 and one in 2016.
Okay. And then what is that? What is that for you?
So, well, first of all, I guess we go all the way back to this idea of the concept that that we're supposed to practice Sabbath rest. Okay, for people who believe in the Judeo-Christian God, one of the things that we have learned is that God created the heavens and the earth, and on the 7th day He rested. Now, what's interesting is God created man on the 6th day. Okay, and so the very first thing man did was not work. Man was created to rest in God and to appreciate the gifts of what God had created. And so it's all about this idea of recognizing the need for rest. And so, the Hebrew people would practice, on this, a 7th day, they would have this Sabbath day and the Shabbat. And anyway, so we've gotten so far away from that rest because, again, we think it's all about work. And I think we have missed what God has created for us, and we've missed this opportunity of how much we're supposed to enjoy the world that we've
Especially in
been
the
given.
U.S., it's all about work.
Well, it is. I mean, if you look into Europe, I mean, my goodness, they're taking months vacation,
Yeah.
and they're not worried about this kind of stuff. I know you guys had somebody on your show recently that's supposed to take a year to go around and figure out who they are and what they are
Yeah.
and what they're called to. I mean, what would happen if we did that here? We'd have a lot happier people.
Yeah.
And so anyway,
And maybe you could find yourself along the way.
yeah,
well,
exactly.
and we pride ourselves here. People say I'm busy and they get excited. Like that's a prideful thing to say I'm busy here,
Well, and it's important to be busy doing nothing. If God can rest, I probably can because
Yeah.
I'm nowhere near God.
Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, so it's about rest. And so a couple of places I work actually have a sabbatical plan, and that is you're supposed to spend an hour a day with God, a day a month with God. You're supposed to spend a week with God every year, and then 3 months every 7 years.
Oh, okay.
So I'm supposed to have regular times in which I unplug from the stuff and I just rest in God's presence, and I just enjoy being with God.
Yeah.
So these long sabbaticals, the 3 months every 7 years, we sort of look at them in 3 phases. So the first month of that would be me disconnecting from everything I've been connected with, all of the stuff that has been heavy and weighing me down on my shoulders. I walk away from all of that. Okay, and then that second month is a time in which I am refueled and I am refilled, in which I really get this opportunity to learn and grow and those kinds of things. And then that last month is this opportunity for me to prepare for reentry, to prepare to go back to my job and never allow myself to get stuck in the same old crap that I was in before I went on these 3 months. And so, somebody walks on that journey with me, and they'll look at me every once in a while and tell you, whether or not you're stupid and whether or not you're actually doing what you're supposed to be doing. And they help you hear
Yeah.
Where
the
does
voice
that
of the
person
Holy
come
Spirit.
from?
You pick somebody that you feel comfortable with who will be your sabbatical overseer. And so, like, my first sabbatical overseer was probably my youth minister from when I was younger, Richard Clark. He knows me better than anybody else. This last sabbatical that I went on, I've had the wonderful opportunity to take a gentleman from Sterling Christian Church on a couple of different retreats. And he had just gotten his master's degree in spiritual formation. And so I said, hey, man, would you be my sabbatical overseer? And he's like, no, I don't want to be. I don't know if I could do that. I'm like, you will be fantastic. And what was great was, like, there was this time you were talking to me about when I'd learned some things. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, he and, at that second month, you're supposed to be trying to find something like a class or a retreat or something that you can start, learning and
Sure, yeah.
maybe transforming, because this is that time of transformation. And he called me up and he goes, I want you to go to this retreat with me. And I'm like, I don't want to go to that retreat. I'm on sabbatical. I don't want to go to that thing. And then I started realizing, wait a minute. It's the 27th, the 28th, the 29th of this month. Guess what? It's getting ready to go into the second month. I said, okay, I'm going on this trip with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, and again, we were on the road together. Because I'm going to tell you something. It's the journey that transforms us.
Yeah.
It's the movement between here and there. a lot of times the destination has nothing to do with it or very little to do with it. It's getting to the destination that absolutely transforms us. Case in point, we're leaving to go to Wichita, Kansas, and we're on 72 at this point. We're driving on 72 on the other side of Champaign, and my friend goes, I've got a place for you. And I go, what do you mean you got a place for me? And I go, where are we eating? Because he's a big fellow too. He's an offensive lineman. He says, where are we eating? I said, where are we eating? He goes, we're not eating. And I go, oh, come on, man. It's got to be food. It's me and you. We always eat together.
Right.
And he goes, it's not food, dude. And I go, it's got to be food. And so we drive along for a few more miles. I'm like, all right, where are we eating? Dude, it's not food. So he gets off this exit in the middle of nowhere near Springfield, Illinois. He takes a right, and then he takes a left, and then he swings up this exit, and he comes off this other place. And then there's this turn that's like, it's like you're driving along, and it's at 5 o'clock. You've got to do this hard turn to cut back. And so he makes this turn, and I see the sign. It's a place called the Chiara Center. It's the Sisters of St. Francis Retreat Center outside of Springfield, Illinois. Mm-hmm. And I go walking into that place. And my life has forever been changed by that place. Mm. My spiritual director now, Dan Frichet, is actually works at Chiara Center. That's right. I drive almost 3.5 hours to go see a spiritual director, but he's so amazing. And because of my friend taking me there, and because of me meeting him, I've even taken other people on retreat there. But what's really cool is, I was with Dan Frichet recently, and he said, Danny, you didn't find this place by accident. I go, I know it wasn't by accident. I'm thinking in my head, Punto Cinco brought me here. That's what I call it.
Took me there.
So Punto Cinco made me come here.
Right, yeah.
He goes, no, you have the spirit of St. Francis and Clare. And I went, I got the spirit of what? I know St. Francis and Clare,
yeah.
But I have since then bought books, and I'm reading books, and I'm on a new journey, and it all connects back to this sabbatical concept and this sabbatical overseer who was willing to look at me and say, I got something for you. Mm. And it's off the beaten path, and it's a turn that you're not going to make. It's a turn you would have never known how to make. Mm-hmm. But I know how to make it, and I'll take you there.
That's cool.
If you would have been busy working, you would have never experienced any of that.
Absolutely not. And when wandering, it is always, well, not always. You don't always have to have a companion. But I'm going to tell you something. A good portion of the time, you do need a companion.
It's best to have a companion, yeah.
Yes. Now, there needs to be times you do it alone. Mm-hmm. Well, can I say this? I mean, if I'm getting too spiritual, forgive me, but we always do have a companion.
Sure.
Right.
It's just sometimes they have skin on. And so sometimes you have companions with skin on. And Punto Cinco is one of the best companions I've ever had.
So what was your master's degree for the guy? What did you say his master's degree was?
It was in spiritual formation.
Okay, so what is spiritual formation then? I don't know if I know what that is.
Spiritual formation is how we grow in Christ. So it's understanding how we grow in our spiritual lives personally.
Interesting.
So I was working on a degree in that, but I ended up getting a degree in something else.
How long does it take to get a master's in that?
It just depends. 54 hours at some places. So,
okay.
Ever how long it takes you to do 54 hours of graduate classes. Gotcha. 2 years at a lot of places.
Okay.
That's cool. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Some places are going to a year program, but you got to really work hard to get it done in a year.
Yeah.
And then the place that you went to is called the Chiara Center?
The Chiara Center. Chiara is a word it's a word for light.
Okay.
And it's the Sisters St. Francis Retreat Center just outside of Springfield. And if you're listening, you should go there. It is absolutely amazing. It is fantastic. They have hotel room style retreat rooms, and man, can they cook.
And the whole thing is specifically for retreats.
Yes. I mean, it's for retreats and for time to get away. Let me tell you something they do there that's really cool. They have, what's it called? I'm going to forget the name of it right now, but y'all can look it up on the internet. It's something about Death Cafe. Okay.
Google that.
Yeah, well, I'm standing in this place because we had gotten locked out. I was taking a guy over there on retreat, and we'd gotten locked out. So you have to dial this number, and security has to come let you in. So we're standing in there, and this thing comes up, and there's these skull and crossbones, and every skull and crossbones grabs my attention. So I'm like, what in the world? Why is there a skull and crossbones at this Sisters of St. Francis Retreat Center? Mm-hmm. Well, they said, honest conversation. This was the subtitle. Honest conversations about death over tea and cake. And I went, Okay.
Sounds like me.
Yeah, I'm like,
Right.
I want to know more. And so it's actually
is interesting.
It's these small groups that are popping up all around the world in which you talk about, you know, that there is a finality to what we do and to our breath. And what does that mean? And what does it mean to live well, die well? What does it mean to, So anyway.
That's really interesting to kind of recognize something that we all try to avoid. Mm-hmm. But if you recognize it, then what is it going to bring you when you are alive? You know, like what do those kind of conversations bring you?
Well, and
in your actual life, you know.
And you got tea and cake too. Who cares?
Right.
You know,
Right.
I'll talk about anything over tea and cake.
That is awesome.
Well, they say fat boys love cake.
There you go.
I love you. It's I love you like a fat guy. I love.
Oh yeah, that's what it is. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
That is so cool.
So if you normally wander with others, what about if you wander alone? What does that normally look like then?
Wandering alone is equally fantastic.
Yeah.
And so it just depends.
See, I always feel like I don't want to go anywhere alone. I always feel like that's kind of like almost depressing a little bit.
We've been having this conversation recently because that's something I want to do so bad. I'm such a people person. I'm such a connector, and I need people, and I want to just do it by myself one day and just see So we've had a lot of conversations. So I'm interested to see how you kind of say that.
All right. So a couple of weeks ago, this is actually a couple months ago. It was February. I have a friend who used to play in the National Football League, and he was in Arizona hunting. And he goes, "Let's go on retreat together, man." And I'm like, "All right, I'll meet you in Arizona." So I called him one time. He goes, "Text me, man. I'm in the middle of the desert." And I'm like, okay. And so we're texting back and forth. Well, anyway, I said, "All right, I'm leaving tomorrow." Okay, this was on a Sunday. So I leave on Monday. Never heard from him again. Okay. So the deal is I'm on my way, and I have to pick up these students. My interns were actually in Sholo, Arizona. So I know that on Monday, the 11th of February, I'm supposed to be in Sholo, Arizona to pick up these students. I don't hear from him on Monday. I don't hear from him on Tuesday. I'm like, I don't hear from him on Wednesday. I'm like, guess what?
I like the laugh.
Wander is on.
Right?
Yeah, so I kick it into high gear, and I'm going to tell you something. I wandered all the way across this country to get to Arizona. So cool. Now, I want to tell you about this one spot I was in, okay? Because I went to Tucumcari, New Mexico, which is this fantastic place. Route 66 goes through there. You've seen these hotels on the internet and stuff. Mm-hmm. I stayed in this hotel that still has the original chairs from back in the 50s. And I sat down in one of those chairs, and I was like, you want to talk about wondering. See, that's when wondering happens. You sit down in this chair that's been there since the 50s, and it's the strongest thing in the world because I'm not the most fragile human being. We'll put it that way. I sat down in that thing, and you just sit there, and you're like, there's still knotty pine walls in this hotel.
Yeah.
And you're like, who's been here?
Yes.
A lot of people.
You know, I want one of these chairs. But there's no way I could afford one of these chairs.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you know, and you just start thinking about that. And you start getting the stories from the people at the front desk about these people and those people. And you start asking about the movies that have been filmed. I mean, you know, anyway. I mean, so it's just great. So I leave. I found this amazing barbecue joint in a hardware store in Tucumcari.
Interesting.
I spent $25 on barbecue.
At a hardware store.
At a hardware store.
Yes.
That is interesting.
I want to tell you something. I'd spend it again. So anyway, so I leave this town and I'm going and I'm like, all right, I want to go to Santa Fe because I know that portions of the TV show Longmire were filmed in Santa Fe, and I love Longmire. My wife and I love Longmire. So I get to this, I'm almost to Santa Fe. I pull over to this spot. And I sit there and I'm like looking it up, and it says, wait a minute, a bunch of this stuff has happened in Las Vegas, New Mexico. And then I remembered, wait, my favorite movie of all time was filmed in Las Vegas, New Mexico. It's called No Country for Old Men. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, I think I'm going to Las Vegas. New Mexico.
I think.
Not Nevada. So I'm sitting there and I'm trying to decide. I probably called my wife and I told, but I wasn't telling her because I was going to do something special for her, go to this place. That was my excuse. Because she likes Longmire as much as I do, which is not true. But anyway, so I ended up going up to Las Vegas. And I'll be honest with you guys, I never wanted to leave Las Vegas. And see, the great thing is when you wander with a companion, you have to always be paying attention making sure that it's not all about you, but that it's this experience for both of us, and that we're lost in this experience, and that we're doing these things together. But when you wander by yourself, the only thing you got to do is get to your final destination.
That is so true. Nicole, did you have one more question?
I did have one last thing. Okay. So would you rather like see a lot of places, like be everywhere, or if you had to, or the other option would be like you have to find one place and know it really well and be at that place?
My answer is yes.
All of the above.
Well, I will be back in Las Vegas, New Mexico, because I did not get to experience nearly what I wanted to experience there. And again, there are stories from Las Vegas, New Mexico that, I mean, I could keep you guys here all night. It's just amazing. So I have to go back there, but I have to also find the new places, because it's when I'm wandering that I'm alive.
Yeah.
And, you know, and it doesn't even have to be wandering very far. It just has to be that turn down the street that I haven't been to, the restaurant that I've never had their ghetto before, you know, and you just go in and you just need to meet those people.
Yeah.
And you need to see them, and you need to see how they do it, and you need to talk to them about their life, and you need to listen to their story. See, I talk a lot, but I hope that people would say that I'm a good listener, because I will patiently sit, hopefully, always, and listen to somebody talk as long as they need to talk. Yeah. And one of the things I think that's very important is I don't usually tell people, you've told me that before, because first of all, even if they have told me that before, what difference does it make to me? Yeah. And what's really important is you might need to tell the story to me 5 times before you understand what truly happened to you.
Yeah.
And I'm here to walk the path with you, even if I've just met you. And I want you to teach me how to more effectively walk my path.
Yeah.
So true.
And regardless of whether our leanings are the same, or regardless of whether, you know, we worship the same God, which I wish we would, but if we don't, you have something that I can learn, and you have something that can give me a better understanding of how to live and move and have my being in this world. And if you know the scriptures, that is definitely a reference, because Paul talks about in him we live and move and have our being, and it's actually quoting a pagan poet. Because I got to be honest with you, when we get into that, there is no line between sacred and secular, in my opinion. You know what? God is busy sending messages through secular as well as sacred pens. And so I'm here to try to take in everything that I possibly can. And to do it as the Spanish people would say, as the Spanish language would say, or the Mexican as the Mexican people would say, with gusto.
Yeah.
I need gusto. And you know what? Everything can have gusto, but we're too busy not being present. We're back to that very beginning thing that we talked about. And so when we're present, you know, we'll learn that God gives us life, breath, and everything, and that in him we live and move and have our being. And it really is one wide, spectacular, beautiful, fantastic world. And I can't wait for the next step.
Yes. Yep.
That's amazing.
That is so good.
That was a perfect wrap up.
Yes, that's so true. And maybe that's why, because I always wonder why I always have the desire to just meet new people. I told, Jason, we were talking the other day about going somewhere, and I was talking about going with somebody, and I was like, yeah, but that person hates to talk to people. Like, I do want to go with that person, but like, they just hate to talk, and I love to talk, and they don't want to stop, and I want to stop, and yeah, maybe that's that pull, that desire to just like, because it is the more you see and the more you know and the more stories that you hear and the more you get to listen, the more you like, the more I feel like full and like complete. I don't know if that's kind of the same for you, but like I just feel fuller in a way.
Well, and what's really cool is I just went on a trip with a friend of mine, and we love each other. I mean, we're really cool and we really hang out well together. But we're also very different. But what's wonderful is when you can be with somebody who goes, this is your thing, and I can let you do it. And then they say, but this is my thing, and now I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
I was in a shop in Seacliff, New York, with this gentleman, and we were talking about his clothing line, and we were talking about his life and what had led him to this particular point. And I was with a friend of mine that is a magnificent travel companion, because we both love people, and we both have conversations with people that go beyond surface level. And it was so funny because he would talk and I would go look at stuff in the shop. And they would say something. I'd be like, oh, and you know what? And I would move back in and he would be looking at stuff in the shop. And when we left, I told him, I said, you know what, dude? I feel bad for anybody that's stuck in a room with me and you.
They were like, did you guys plan this?
I mean, it's fun because it's all about learning how to dance.
Yeah.
And learning how to, how to navigate a room, and how to properly navigate situations, and how to love people as you navigate.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah. I think that was something I was talking to Danny about just a minute ago, was like, quote my brother. One time he said, in life, you just got to love people for who they are, where they are, and wherever they are, when you are, everything. So that's something that's really stuck to me is, if you're doing that, then you're going to always make these connections. And you're always going to have these things that bring you better as a person, because you're just loving people for who they are, because it can't be anybody other than where they are.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I love that.
I agree.
All right, a little stupid thing. When I hold the door for people, sometimes I'll say, I'll be like, thank you for being who you are.
Yeah.
And people are like, well, I don't know anybody else to be. And I look at them and I say, well, most of the people I know have no idea who they are.
Yeah.
So thank you for being who you are.
Yeah.
That's so true. That is awesome. Yes.
Do we want to do the Epic 5?
Yeah.
Are we going to do that?
Yeah. Although I would love to hear all the stories, because I know you have way more. Maybe we can look into that for another time.
We can maybe have him back for another
yeah,
show. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Jason goes, no, no, get him out of here. Please rescue
Absolutely not.
No. Yeah. I think we should head into the Epic 5.
Do you want to do the Epic 5 questions?
I will.
Go ahead.
Okay. So our Epic 5, I know you guys, we did this the first couple episodes. I don't think we've been doing it.
We haven't done it in a while.
And we were like, wait, we forgot the Epic 5. They're not so epic if you forget them. So we have 5 questions in our Epic 5. They're kind of just like rapid fire questions that we ask. Supposed to be every guest.
That's a hint to Danny. These are rapid fire questions. Shut up.
That is not a
Simple answers.
It's just like,
There are no simple answers.
Right, I
I'm
know,
sorry.
Right.
it's kind of just something that we like to kind of get to know each guest individually. We ask them the same questions just so we kind of know who you are. Which some of these we might have already touched on, because sometimes that'll happen. But okay, so the first one is, where's your favorite place in the U.S.?
My favorite place in the U.S.
Las Vegas.
Okay, it's always, no, you know what? It's always where I have just been.
I can agree with that.
And so I was in Michigan last week, and I'm just going to say Michigan. I drove the M22 for the first time. I was in Leland. Just down towards the water in Leland is Fishtown, the shanties and shacks, and I bought fish sausage. You got to be kidding me.
What?
I didn't know it existed. I love Leland and Fishtown, Michigan.
Fish sausage, that's awesome.
Is it as good as Geta?
Yes, it is.
That's awesome. Okay, 2 is kind of similar. If you could go only one place, where would that be?
And this is one place
Ever.
in the universe.
Yeah, in the universe.
So your answer can be Mars.
I want to go to Israel.
Israel.
I want to go to Israel.
That'd be a good one, actually.
That's all.
Well, and if I could sneak in other places, I'd want to make sure that I went through Europe on the way.
Nice.
Just wander that way.
Yeah, I want to wander. Exactly.
Yeah, wander along. Okay, question 3. What is your favorite mode of travel?
I love motorcycles.
Very nice.
Because they're very nice.
We never had anybody say that. I like that.
But I'm going to be honest with you. I love motorcycles and I love cars. But if you're not walking, you're not experiencing things.
Yeah.
And so I got to be on my feet.
That's awesome.
I love it. Nobody
Yes.
else is going to say walking. I like that.
That is, yeah, no one is, that's so unique. No one's going to say that. But people out there, you better try it now. Okay, question 4. What is your best travel tip?
This could be Pandora's box.
There it is. My best travel tip, take the time.
Take the time to do the trip.
Take the time to be where you are.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. That's a good one.
I like that too.
Yeah. And then number 5, how does travel, I think we already talked about this a little bit, but how does travel recharge you or what do you gain from travel personally?
My father always taught me that you have to learn every day. And so I am endlessly curious. And so that process of being on a journey, connecting with my curiosity, fuels me and gives me life. I am fully alive when I am moving.
That's awesome. Yes. That is
I like
wonderful.
that one too.
Yeah, that was really good. I want to do a wandering trip, Jason.
It kind of sounds a little appealing, doesn't it?
Very appealing. I love spontaneity.
Spontaneity.
Yep, that's
There you go.
spontaneity.
Spontaneity.
Kind of
Wandering.
like wandering. Wandering. Can we wander?
Can we wander?
When can we wander?
Can we wander like a river?
Yeah. So yeah, that's awesome. That was our epic 5.
All right.
Hey.
Do you have a don't do that?
Yeah.
We can come back to it if you want to pause.
Yeah, I mean, I don't do that. I mean, I would love to have something as good as, don't unbuckle your belt. But I mean, I'll never be able to top that. Here's a tip. If your car is overheating, don't ever forget to put the radiator cap back on the radiator.
Oh, that's a good one.
Because when it's bright and sunny outside, but rain is hitting the windshield, and then you realize that rain is green.
Yeah.
And it's not acid rain.
You're like, am I in Area 51?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I was leaving Roswell, New Mexico. So it was not alien blood. It was my radiator fluid.
Oh, man.
Don't do
That's
that.
a good one. That's our don't do that.
Yes.
Brought to us by Danny. Okay. One last thing. Hidden gem. Do you have a hidden gem?
Well, we know you have a lot. You must have a lot.
You'd have to pick one.
Yeah. Well, 1 or 2.
Oh no.
Do you have 2 hidden gems?
How many gems you got?
This is today's hidden gem.
One of my favorite places that I've ever been in my life is Puerto Rico. I've been a couple times, 3 times, I guess. My friends would always take me, when we get out, as soon as we land, we would turn and we would go to La Isla, I believe is what it's called. And I might be forgetting the name of this, so I might have to change this. And there's this little shop that sells pinchos and all the wonderful goods that you can eat in Puerto Rico. And it's right there on the beach.
Pinchos?
Oh, pinchos, yeah.
What are pinchos?
Pinchos are these barbecue chicken that are on a stick. And it's the best barbecue you've
I
ever
would like
had in your
that.
life.
Yeah, that's right up my alley.
And so I love that place. But they would also take me to this place called Los Kioscos. And these Los Kioscos are these little souvenir shops and places to eat right on the water, basically, where the Atlantic and the Caribbean come together. And so it's really, really beautiful. But there is also a mountain there that goes up into a rainforest. And I cannot think, it almost came to me. Hopefully I'll think of it in a second. But anyway, there's a waterfall up there that I'll never forget as long as I live. And being in that waterfall and standing in that cold water in this rainforest on a mountain in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
It was pretty amazing.
That was awesome.
That's awesome. That sounds amazing to me. I want to go there now.
Yeah, so hit up that hidden gem.
That's today's hidden gem. All right, that's our show for the day. We want to thank Mr. Danny for coming on.
Yes, and thank you to all of our listeners out there.
Thank you so much. We appreciate every one of you. Oh, who's our new people this week? Denmark.
Denmark.
We got new listeners in Denmark. We are so happy to have you. You have no idea.
And Sweden.
And Sweden.
Yes.
We have new listeners in Sweden. Lots of new listeners in New Zealand and Australia.
Yes, so exciting.
We are so happy to have all you guys. So
Yes,
thank you so much. And we accidentally deleted Danny's wrap up. So Danny said thank you to everybody as well.
Yes, and thank him for giving us his time.
Yes, thank you, Danny. We
Yeah.
appreciate you coming on the show and teaching us about wandering.
Wandering.
Or wandering. Or so wandering.
It's wondering when you're wandering. Hey, I'm actually wondering when we're going to wander.
I'm going to wander around at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway this weekend.
Ooh,
That's going to be some good wandering right there.
sounds good.
Hey,
Thanks.
you guys coming to the Indy 500? Come look us up.
Yeah.
We'll be there.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you so much, guys. Bye. See you next week.
Sponsor is a sponsor.
All right. Well, I hate to interrupt, but now seems like an excellent time to bring up our sponsor.
Shit.
Our sponsor is not shit.
Oh my God.
Sponsor, not sponsor.
I just really spaced out. What was happening.
Although, if you do own a porta potty company and would like to sponsor the podcast, Nomadic Traveler Podcast at gmail.com.
I don't even know what just happened there. That was great. Okay, start over.
Oh, is that what we're going to do? I was just going to leave it.
No, it's complete crap.
Oh, okay.
I got a little sidetracked. I don't even know where my mind was.
Shit. Okay, I'll stop it. All right, I hate to interrupt, but we need to make some time for our sponsor.
Who's our sponsor?
Our sponsor is Indie Wiring Services. Indie Wiring Services is located in Brownsburg, Indiana. They specialize in high-end wiring harnesses for motorsports and industrial prototyping applications. From project cars to Indy cars, hybrid... Damn it. This is actually harder than it seems.
Do you want me to read it this time?
Yeah, sure. You want to? All right. I hate to interrupt, but we need to make a little time for our sponsor. Are you just not trying, or?
Because start over.
I think Nicole quit.
I did not quit.
She just gave up. She's like, I'm just gonna sit here and not say anything.
Because it sounded like you were gonna go, like you were just gonna flow.
Did it?
It did, and I didn't.
That great big giant pause that I took sounded like I was gonna flow right into it. Got it.
Whatever, Jason. What was that?
Now we got children coming in too.
Shut the door and lock it.
Lock it up.
No. Okay, come on. Let's start over again. I was I don't know. It's cool.
It's cool. All right, outtakes. All right, I hate to interrupt, but we need to make time for our sponsor.
Ooh, who's our sponsor?
Our sponsor is Indie Wiring Services.
Ooh.
And they are a sponsor for the whole entire month of May because in Indianapolis, which is where we're broadcasting from, May is Indy 500 month.
Fuck.
May is Indy month. It's Indy month, Mom. Mom.
Hey,
I
Mom.
can't work today.
Hey, Mom. It's Indie Month.
Hey, Ma. Hey, Ma.
Hey, Mom. What's up?
What you doing, she?
That's good.
What you doing, she? It's Indy month, man. They have race cars here. They go around a track, see? They're in an oval.
Are you excited for the race?
Yeah.
Do you know what I'd be more excited for?
What?
If I got to take my car to Indy wiring.
This isn't gonna work. Nice try saving it though. That was good. I appreciate it.
Okay, please don't put this in the outtakes either.
I'm putting it in the outtakes.
No, don't.
I'm sorry, that's going in the outtakes. Say bye.